Hey, what's up, everyone? My name is Lionel. Hey, I'm your host for LG Productions, and you are watching I Watch You Watch. We are covering Beyond the Gates, currently airing on CBS every week. I think it's every day at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is week 8, and I appreciate everyone for coming to my channel. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. So let's get into this week. Okay, so we are celebrating Kat's birthday. Some people were making jokes this week because some products are showing up during the soaps. Today was Febreze, and then also later on in the week we see Tide. If you guys do not know, is that Procter and Gamble is one of the sponsors for the soap opera. So you got to display these products. They're advertising. So I don't care. They used to do that all the time on all the old soaps back in the day. So, oh well, y'all, I guess we'll get used to it or whatever, or just start buying your Febreze and buying your Tide with bleach. Yeah, so Anita spraying around the Febreze. Nicole says that she learned the lesson from Anita from back in the day. Da, da, da. Before we get to the party, let's get on to some other things. Danny, she's at home and she's crying, and it looks like she's ready to get some alcohol. Guess who shows up? Vernon. Danny was quite surprised, and he said, I know when my daughter needs me, and he's there, and they give each other a hug. They talk later on in the episode at how things are kind of have been weighing on her. Even the things concerning Bill, she got a glimpse, and finally, we think she's coming to the realization that it's really over with Bill. Haley is not a trophy wife. He looks at her like he used to look at me. That could be a very low blow for people. And we can sit up here and act like, okay, well, just get over it. Do y'all get over stuff that easily? Like, I don't understand. In real life, you know that it takes a while to get out of this mode. For Danny, she's taking it hard. She is trying to pick up the pieces from where her life has now been shattered as to how she had built it and thought she would always be in this place forever. And it's not that case in her life anymore. So at the lawyer's office with Bill and Naomi, Naomi's calling out Bill for how he's not being available for court. And she's just calling out the BS and saying, yes, you are. And those could be easily scheduled. And then Bill says, I have a doctor's appointment. Da, 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 da. And then at that point, something switched in Naomi and was like, well, what's going on there with the doctor? Is everything okay? And then Bill's like, I'm fine. Da, 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 da. He starts talking about, so it looks like the only time that you can really be soft towards me, that I have to be at the death's door for you to have a change of heart as to how you deal with me. Bill's calling out Naomi because he can see that there are some vulnerable spots in Naomi, no matter how she's trying to portray in front of him. And Bill says that I like that you're still invested in me while still being mad at me. And I think it's true. And we're going to get into the next episode where we see Naomi shift. But the shifting started, I think, even on last week's episode. So Eva and Leslie, they're at the point where they're just discussing what happened the last time they've had a confrontation. First, they start talking. Eva's kind of confused with Leslie because it's like, I'm really confused because I think I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing as you told me to do, but then you get mad here and all that when things aren't. And it's a lot for me to have to handle all the time, blah, 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 blah. Leslie's feeling the type of way because it seems like you want to be around Ted and Nicole a whole lot more than you want to be around me, and da, 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 da. She's like, well, that's not really that. But Leslie said, I can see that it's wearing on you, but just hold on a little bit more tight, baby, and you will get the prize and get what is really deserving of you. Soon the world will know what Ted has done. And then Eva said, they'll also know what I've done. And Leslie was like, what? Because they're going to look at me crazy too. I mean, well, look at Haley. And I'm saying this from my own commentary. Look how they treat her. You think that they're going to be welcoming? But how things are going, Ted and Eva are quite welcoming and kind of bringing her in as a surrogate daughter. Word on the street is Eva is Ted and Nicole's daughter. What do y'all think? Because something else that happens later on this episode, and you're like, Okay. Interesting, but we'll get to that in just a few minutes. Um, Danny and Vernon. Okay. Vernon talks a little bit about stuff that he's been through as to how he's had to prove himself back in the 70s. He had to fight tooth and nail to prove himself because of the legacy that Paul Cheeks Dupree really left within the world, you know? So, because Paul Cheeks had, or Paul, Mr. Dupree, has done so much and had even built, you know, Fairmont Crest or Fairmont, you know, Fairmont. um, People were doubting Vernon's sincerity. Were you really down with the cause or just living in your dad's shadow? And there was a lot of that. And he had to really decide what he wanted to do or to really stay in this whole thing as far as being an activist and being a part of the political race and things of that nature. What was the deciding factor or the push that he needed is that he saw light on the other side of the darkness that he was feeling when he laid his eyes on Anita. Anita changed everything for him, and it really helped him to. He saw a future with Anita. A lot of people actually feel that way. Some people just talk about love at first sight, but some people can really see someone and just know that that's the one for them. In this day and age, it's quite rocky to kind of think that way. It's like, you sure? Especially when you got the balloon pop challenge and things of that nature. Folks is just knocking you off just by the shoes that you decided to wear that day. So there's so many red flags, or at least we are at least acknowledging the red flags these days and not so quick to jump into stuff. Shout out to Portia. That's from The Real Housewives of Atlanta, if you watch. Shout out to her. Danny says, you know, I'm embarrassed because I become this public type of embarrassment that really bringing the family down and all this stuff. And that's not something that I really wanted to do. And I was even kicked off the board for the stuff that I did. And you had to create a new charity in order for me to have something. And Vernon said that there's no shame in needing a hand up. And there's definitely not. They're doing all these things to help you, Danny. I think that in so many ways at this point that you need to help yourself. Later on in this week, everybody is finding and creating different ways to try to build you up. So your family is there for you in so many ways. Vernon says, you know, the happy is coming. Make no mistakes. Nicole and Anita, they talk about Kat being their miracle baby. She gives us a little bit more details as to what was going on as far as Nicole having all these miscarriages. I pushed him away and he started hanging out with his friends more. Having Martin was just so easy, but with trying to have another child again was really difficult. Somehow when Kat came along, everything just changed. Not only is this Nicole's birthday, but it's also a rebirth of Ted and Nicole's marriage. I said, wow. Bill and Haley, after meeting with Naomi, Bill says that I may be getting my daughters back. And then Haley said, well, I have some news that might be throwing a wrench into all that. I might be pregnant. And of course, Bill is taken aback by it, and he's not really for it because their plan wasn't really to have children. They were just going to see the world and live life and all that stuff. I mean, could you see Bill, who has grown daughters, all of a sudden want to start raising children all over again? Probably not. I don't know how he would deal with having grandchildren. I mean, it's about time. And no pressure for me, even though this is a soap and I don't know, y'all. As far as Naomi and Chelsea having children and all that good stuff. He says, like, have you been taking your birth control? And Haley says, I am. I'm almost careful, almost always careful. And Bill said, almost. Like, she said, well, there's been things that have come up at times, the wedding and all this other crap. So there may have been times where I've forgotten to take my birth control. Okay, Haley. Okay. Then they talk about having a child. Do you want versus need a child in all this? You know, Haley said that she was okay without it, but now that there's a possibility, then possibly I could get it. And maybe this time you could get a boy, and that would be a totally different type of uh, a presence or a dynamic for our family. Da 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 da. So they're going to see what happens at this point, and I guess they'll accept whatever the results are. But I don't think Danny's going to be very happy about it, along with the daughters. But it's just like, because Danny keeps saying that every time I seem to get a little bit up, here comes something else. I'm trying to crawl. You know when people kind of like crawl up uh, like out of a hole or something like that. It seems like they're almost getting to the top, and then somehow they slip or something, and now they're back to climbing again. That's kind of the thing as far as what Danny is experiencing at this moment. Um, okay, so Kat's birthday party starts. Kat did have a little a pre-birthday thing with Tomas and all that good stuff. So he comes to the birthday party too. Him and Martin, they start talking. Kat thinks that there's going to be another ambush, and Martin's like, "No, after all that we did to you the other day, that was enough, and you're good to go." So Eva shows up, but Eva knows nothing about the birthday party because she was like, "Well, there was nothing on your calendar, so I didn't know." And Nicole says, "I did not put that on the calendar due to how Kat has been behaving towards you lately." So Nicole says, "Stay, have a piece of cake." Eva's like, but she does stay. Um, Later on, all the family's there, of course, and they sing "Happy Birthday." I want to learn that version of "Happy Birthday" because I haven't heard it sung like that before. But Eva's talking with Tomas and just saying how it looks like Kat is appreciative of what she has and da 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 da. And Kat is pretty upset when she sees both of them talking and overhearing Eva say stuff about Kat. So then she said, "I really don't want you to be here. You stalker wannabe trash." Said, "Get out of here," basically. Eva goes to another room. Ted finds her and she's crying. And she doesn't say what Kat has done to her. However, she was just saying things were reminding her of the woman that raised her, being around your family, around the Duprees and all that. And Ted said, "Look, you have Nicole and myself. Just consider us that." So basically, they have somewhat adopted her, even though it's only been. This is week 8 of me reviewing, so what, 7 weeks, and you're just so knitted? Okay. Nicole and Danny, they talk. Nicole offers, I think Danny's about to leave or whatever. She offers to come over to bring some cake, and they can binge on that. And Danny was like, "I think the cake is going to be demolished." So, but she did say, "If I need you, I know where to find you." And Danny leaves. Um, Naomi goes back to Bill's office and says that I am withdrawing from the case. Eva goes home and finds Leslie with the birthday hat and the little blow thing that you have and saying "Happy Birthday." And Eva's like, "Well, my birthday is in for another couple of weeks." Someone did say that Kat is probably a twin to Eva. What do y'all think about that? What do y'all think? Because that's quite crazy, don't you think? A couple weeks. It seems whatever happened during that time, I don't know. How did you have a baby at the same exact time? Or around the same exact time as Nicole? Ted brushes you off at the same time that he got another woman pregnant. Or got his wife pregnant. That's quite crazy, but Eva was appreciative of what Leslie was trying to do. Let's move on to Tuesday. Bill wants to know what's going on with Naomi. What are you up to? Because Bill first thought that the lawsuit was going to be dropped. She said it's not going to be dropped. It's just continuing without me. And she says that she had got one of her SOAR fraternity, or not fraternity, sorority sisters, who is a lawyer, to take on the case. That's really good at defeating her opponents or whatever. And she's going to be doing it pro bono. All right, so Martin, Smitty, and the kids. Smitty is helping Samantha with some of her modeling. He's very involved with the children. It's always that way. One person really has to be dedicated to the children, and I really think both. I mean, you do what you can. One is good at one thing, and another could be good at something else. At least both are good at co-parenting. Martin just seems to want to be the disciplinarian, the one to say what goes, and I guess that could be good, but then it can be bad as it is when you hear these children finally speak out and being honest at how they feel about this family. So Martin comes home and he wants to talk with Tyrell because he wants to confront him about the picture. He finally knows what happened and all that good stuff. So Danny and Andre, they are sexting one another, and eventually Andre's going to make it over there. We'll get to that a little bit later. At the hospital, Shanice is confronting Doug, saying, "Hey, you are quite overbooked. What's really going on?" Seems, and then she makes this shady comment about, looks like the money is really racking up. And then Doug sets her in her place and just saying that I set my schedule according to my patient's needs. Like, he's this great doctor, and everything is about the patient's need. I think that that's really in his forefront mind to do. However, he is trying to have all these patients so that he can pay off his debt. And it's kind of just intertwining with each other at this point because Doug is having problems paying back his debts, and he doesn't really want to go back to gambling. So back to Bill and Naomi. Bill really gets Naomi to start talking as to how she actually feels about him and what he's done. Like, you not only betrayed Mom, you betrayed me. Bill's saying, well, why are you walking away now when you have your chance to tell the world how bad I am? And Naomi's like, it's a conflict of interest. And Bill's like, no, it's not. No, tell me the real reason. And then Naomi finally says, it's because I love you too much. On one hand, it's like, really, Naomi, why you gotta be a softie? But then it's like, that's still your parent. And you still love them, despite how you may even feel about them, But Bill was able to reach Naomi after so long that there's been a wall up because of the stuff that he was doing, hoeing around on his mother and breaking up the family the way that he did. Jacob is at the hospital, I think. Yeah, Andre's there, and Jacob is testing Andre's temperature. And what I mean by that, he's trying to see where Andre is and to see how he can shift things because of the last conversation he had with Derek about how he feels that Andre is putting the moves on Ashley. So Jacob offers Andre that there's this nurse that's in the maternity ward that possibly could be your brand or somebody that you could date. And also says that she's a baddie. And Andre really isn't paying too much attention to that. Jacob wanted to take Andre to her. And he was like, just give me your number. And Jacob's like, you don't want this baddie, da 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 da. And at the same time, him and Danny are sexting each other. So anyways, at this point, he's gotten the clearance from Danny to come over. So then that was kind of leaving Jacob kind of confused, or at least probably now knowing that there is a clear distinction that Andre got something going on with Ashley. Okay, so back with Martin, Smitty, and the kids. Martin ends up telling Tyrell, how he found out there was a reporter that got wind of what happened. He ended up negotiating with this reporter to let this story die, and that he would, in exchange, give another like an interview with this reporter. And Martin is trying to help his child. And he says that I want to help you. And Tyrell says, no, don't help me. Da, 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 da. And he's saying, how can you handle this? You're not really handling it. You're just enduring it. So at this moment, he's not really in this place of wanting you to come in and rescue him. Smitty will be getting into that, I think, later on in one of the episodes. Next, Doug and Randy. Randy comes to the hospital. And Doug is pretty upset, saying, so when did you come to the house? When do you do house calls? When do you do your house calls without your boss? Oh, yeah, because I think Randy was like, I'm just here to check on you, da 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 da. When do you do house calls with your boss? And Randy said, well, since you called in a frantic. And then we get the flashback of him saying, I almost unalived one of my patients and all that. I'm very exhausted and all I can think about is gambling, da 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 da. Anyways, Doug says, I'm done with gambling and I'm going to just do this cold turkey. Randy said, that's going to be quite hard to do, da 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 da. And Doug said, I don't care. I have to stop this, da 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 da. So Andre gets to Danny's house. Danny is at the house modeling, drunk. She ends up falling to the floor. Andre gets there and gets to her, and she's laughing because she's like drunk. Andre picks her up and takes her to her bedroom. We see that Andre is giving her medication for her to finally kind of rest a little bit. After drinking, I don't know if medication should have been mixed in there, but hey, that's not me. Diego meets up with Vanessa at the country club and all that. He's talking about Joey. He's acting like a jealous man and trying to figure out what's going on. Doug shows up and she's acting all lovey-dovey towards Doug all of a sudden in front of Diego's face. And basically, Diego's going to be training Doug and all that, even though he didn't want to do it. Tyrell, Martin, and Smitty. Tyrell says, look, Martin feels like everybody else is the problem, and Tyrell says that you are my problem. And y'all basically are blowing up my spot. I don't want to feel like the charity case, and I'm just going to stick it out. I don't need you to flex your influence to take care of this. And then I think at this point, he leaves the room. Bill and Naomi. Bill tells his daughter that I miss you. And he pulled all those other games because he wanted to be around Naomi, as far as the manipulation to those girls and all of that. I left your mother, not you and Chelsea. But he did say that I want your fight and not your pity as to why you really want to be around me. You know, when he showed signs of a stroke. Naomi says, as far as her feelings towards her father, like, look, I really want to drag you. But I'm realizing slowly that I only have one father. I don't forgive you. But the court was just to drag you. Oh, I don't forgive you, but I don't want to use the court to try to drag you at this point. Da, 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 da. Oh. So Brandy calls Joey and reports back to him. And basically, Joey says that we're going to wait about what Doug is doing. He says we're going to wait until he has his new itch as far as gambling. Because you know that quitting cold turkey, he knows he's going to be tempted pretty soon. Martin and Smitty, they talk. Smitty's trying to give Martin Tyrell's point of view. You know, we can't just be stepping in and all that, you know, but we can't have him in this mess of falling in deeper. And Smitty says, well, don't you have to fall before getting back up and let Tyrell handle it his way, because he won't feel like you respect him. Trust Tyrell. And we really need to step back. And Marty just basically refuses to listen, and he leaves out the door. After Naomi leaves, Bill has a meeting with Michael, the pervy guy, and says that basically you're fired. Danny all of a sudden gets up and she wants to dance. Quite erratic behavior all of a sudden, because Andre's like, you need to rest. But she said, no, I want to dance. Da, 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 da. So she danced for a little while, and then she says, now you can hold me. He holds her, and then she starts crying. That is a lot. I don't know about Andre, but it just feels like, I know he wants to be there for her, but that's got to be a lot of weight to carry. That's a lot you're trying to deal with. I don't know about all that, you know. The next day, this is Wednesday, Bill and Michael, after firing him and all that good stuff, Michael's like, if you go, all my clients go, da 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 da. And he says, you know, I'm gonna get all of the big clients that I need and all that. We've already talked it out, blah 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 blah. And then Michael said, I'll sue for defamation. Defamation of what? It is a current lawsuit going on here in regards to that. So you win, I lose. Get out of here. I'm paraphrasing. Naomi goes home and talks with Jacob. And the thing that is kind of bothering her is that she doesn't want to feel like she's giving in to her dad, making her mom feel a certain type of way. Jacob says, well, your mom gave you clearance to go with your heart as to whatever you decide and all that good stuff. You know, it looks like I love Danny. Don't get me wrong. Everybody is trying the hardest to do what's best for Danny and walking on eggshells just to help her feel better. And I wish that Danny really could see that. I mean, she doesn't depreciate what they're doing. I just don't know if she's just grasping onto everything. But, you know, people got to get up at their own pace and at their own time. And I get that. It's just like, girl, you got so much support. I don't see anyone judging you or just saying, leave her be. And for me, I can't say that I've seen that. And it's cool to see this black family kind of just be a representation for me to see something positive that I've needed to see. So even though this girl is still sliding down or whatever, their arms are still out there to reach for her and doing whatever they can to save their child, their sister, their mother, their auntie, their friend. Pamela's going to come in later on this week, and they are there for her. I don't say that she don't want to be saved. I think that she's just trying to find her feet again and find how to stand up again. And I think that's where she's at right now. Anyway, Danny and Andre. Andre kind of gives her some tough love and just saying, you know, you need to stop drinking. Danny takes offense to that, and I don't understand because Andre's been here forever and a day, and you just. Andre says, you know, you're a friend, or you're my friend, and Danny said, a friend. Why now? I'm just a friend. I mean, what are y'all? Like, you have jumped to someone else as to being codependent. You have so many things that you have latched onto, and now that it feels like the what is it? The ground is a, what is the saying? It sounds like you don't have no balance to stay up, because everything that you have latched onto and been codependent on, you can't depend on anymore. But you have adopted that thing onto Andre. It's not just a sex thing. And I think Andre is feeling that. I don't think Andre's going to leave you, but at the same time, like, Danny, get up and fight. And Andre says that, like, you push people away that are trying to help you. And Andre pours back into her and says that she's strong and beautiful. And it should be obvious to you. Well, I'm none of those things to Bill. Andre says, you know, I watched you do those things as far as the charity thing. When you're on fire, you are on fire. It can be felt a mile away. There's so much more into you than being Bill Hamilton's wife. That's something else. I'm loving it. I still love the complexity of Danny. Don't get me wrong. It's from reacting like you just want this girl to get up and just be fine. And we're just seeing it. We got to keep seeing her try to put her life back together. And I think that we're getting a real representation of someone trying to get it together and still just a mess. This is the ugly part, you know. Eventually we'll get to the other side. That's what it means. Instead of just having maybe a day or two, if we're talking about soap opera world, you may have a day or two of doing this, doing that, and then you're like, oh, I'm better. Nobody really talks to you anymore, and you're on to the next storyline, or you're set. If you're not a big story anymore, then you're just put over on the back burner. But you can see these writers, they're laboring with these characters and giving more colors and depth as we are getting to know these characters, you know. I really love it. Ted and Nicole, they're having a little time because Ted was doing a few things for Nicole and all that. And she said something like, it sounds like you're sorry for something or whatever, blah, 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 blah. At that point, Ted got a little bit, a guilty look on his face at this point. We move over to Martin and Smitty. He comes back and we find out, he tells Smitty that he talked to the principal. And she was not aware as to what had been going on. Martin also says that there are some things that he was doing that Smitty says that I wish that you really had let me in on this whole thing. Marty is the one that likes to take control, and when he gets on a task, he just does it without considering his partner. And he does that a lot, which I wish he would stop. And Smitty keeps saying that to him. Andre leaves. Pamela comes over right when Danny is tempted to go drink again. Pamela sees how Danny's doing, and she doesn't cry as far as Terry cried, but she cries to Pamela just saying that I really want my fire back. I've been missing my groove. And Pamela says, let's have a brainstorming session. Let's go to the country club. They go on over to the country club. Haley is over there, and it looks like the ban has been lifted, and now the wait staff will take Haley's order and all that good stuff. So Pamela and Danny, they arrive, and they see Haley. And Pamela says, what would the old Danny do as far as addressing Haley? So Danny goes over there and talks to her and basically says, you know, there will be a day where Bill does not no longer wants or needs you. And Haley said, we are fine. But she said, you better have a plan B or you're going to be stuck just like me. I think that was still good advice. That wasn't hater mode, Danny. I think that she really wanted to, like, look, you can get all trapped up in Bill Hamilton's world, but there's going to be a day that he may just be done with you. What is your plan B? You're too busy trying to be this, who are you, a paralegal? Which we hardly see you do that. You said, well, I'm keeping my job. Okay. We hardly see you there. But anyways, after a while, you're going to get wrapped up. He had already stopped me from having a career. But anyways, Danny leaves. I think Bill comes in and all that good stuff. They talk a little bit more about, we're going to find out if we're pregnant or not. And Haley does tell Danny about the ban has been lifted and all that good stuff. Back at Naomi and Jacob, they talk a little bit more about why are you more mad at Haley than you are with your father. I mean, well, there's a different type of connection anyways. And to be mad at this person that you took in that came in and did whatever. I want the backstory. I want some flashbacks at this point because these jokers just acting like this just happened. We're in love. How? What happened? How did you get here to being in love? That is so crazy. I gotta speed it up a little bit. I'm talking too much. Ted and Andre. Ted is feeling the guilt. Andre saying, you could tell Nicole if you want to. I will always keep your secret or whatever. And all that good stuff. But, whenever you want to tell her if that's on you. But Ted says that I know that it would hurt Nicole more than what she could really handle or whatever. Blah, 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 blah. But he's not at the point of really wanting to tell her anything. So Martin is setting up this whole, I guess, restructuring of cyberbullying and all that good stuff. And Smitty says, please don't make Tyrell the poster child for cyberbullying because that's not going to help him because he really wants the attention off of him, So back at the country club, Danny and Pamela are brainstorming as the things that is her passion, making sure that first generation college attendees are taken care of and their tuition is paid for and all that. That's something that gives her passion. Bill comes over and thanks Danny for lifting the band off of Haley. On to Thursday. I'm kind of running through a lot of stuff right now because I'm running really heavy with my time. Chelsea, Kat, and Samantha. They're doing one of those dance viral challenges off of TikTok, I believe. Samantha comes over and Kat was like, wait a minute. Isn't it a little bit too early in the day for you to be over here? And Samantha said, no. I'm quitting school and I'm pursuing modeling full time. Lord, this girl went from one little modeling show to now I'm quitting school to do modeling. Like, oh, but that is the mindset of a teenager when they get fixated on something. Not saying that Samantha is just this, oh, today I want to do modeling, tomorrow I want to be a veterinarian. That could be the case also. But at the same point, the things that people think of in their mind as to what they think is going to be fulfilling for the moment, that's how a lot of teenagers are. But they're not thinking clearly. However, I think how Samantha is thinking as to how much of a box that she has been set into because of the family that she's in, Naomi, she talks with the women and they said, we want to settle if it's not with you, we still want you. So then they come up with a different plan. Okay, so how can we do this and you still not have to go to court? And they're trying to get more long-standing policies for Bill's office. Really turn it right side up instead of upside down as to how it has been and all that good stuff. Naomi says, you know what? I think we have a good plan. They talked out the strategy and all that. I'm just giving you a little yang. Set it up and she said that she'll set it up and then she'll step away and all that good stuff. Tyrell comes home and says that there was an assembly done concerning cyberbullying. Tyrell knew right away that his dad got involved. And the other schoolmates also knew and figured it out and basically had blamed Tyrell for snitching. And basically Martin was giving his reasoning as to what he was doing and all that. And Tyrell was like, don't gaslight me in this situation. And Martin was ready to buck up a little, not fight him or whatever, but, back up a little bit. And Smitty said, let's hear him out. You have no respect for me. And then he talks with Smitty. At least you listen to me. You don't. And I wish I wasn't a part of this family as far as what all you make me do. Da, 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 da. he gave his real feelings, and I don't think that anyone could just be mad at him for how he feels. So at this point, I think Samantha's back at home, and she says that she will talk to him. Back at the hospital, Shanice talks to Doug about, Tyrell does say, if you want to help me, stay out of it, as far as towards his dad, Martin. Now on to Doug and Shanice at the hospital. Like, you're still overscheduling yourself, doctor. And Doug says, I'm fine. And Shanice is like, we just don't want you to burn yourself out. Or maybe Sam wasn't there. I don't know. Sam wasn't there. Oh, well. Anyways, Kat, Chelsea, and Sam. Kat says, I think we have a plan for this and also for you to stay in school. There's no way that your father will let you model and none of that. I know my brother and I know how to get a compromise out of this whole situation. Kat's trying to tell her the pitfalls of modeling. She's like, look, Chelsea already told me. And she also said, Tyrell and I really had it bad before meeting our dads. So we can handle this. I can handle this, basically. They come up with this plan to kind of have this insider view on social media, post her as kind of like this new brand model and all that good stuff, and she still goes to school. Back at the hospital, Shanice talks with Vanessa, like, do you know if anything's going on with Doug? Because all of a sudden he's just overworking. Is something else going on? And that startles Vanessa. And I was shocked because it seemed like Vanessa really didn't care about this man no more. But she really surprised me in these next few episodes. I was like, oh, okay, go ahead, Vanessa. Tyrell goes, I think, to the normal hangout for the restaurant or whatever. Is it Orthogenes? I forgot it. Whatever. We meet Jessica, the popular girl. That's where the photo was actually sent to that the boyfriend found and ended up punching Tyrell. He ended up breaking up with, or she said that she broke up with her boyfriend because of what she heard that he was doing to Tyrell. She does apologize to Tyrell on behalf of him as to what happened, and he said that no issue there. And then she ended up saying, I really admire you. I said, oh. Is there going to be a potential Tyrell and Jessica hookup? I don't know. But it's the bravery of him being able to endure and to not give up and run from what was happening to him and all that good stuff. Martin and Smitty, they talk about, well, let's just transfer schools. I thought it would be better that they were in public school, but maybe they need to go back to private school. And Smitty said, we got to let Tyrell make the call. Tyrell comes back home and they said, we want to transfer schools. And he said, no, I can handle this. I'm going to make it through it just like you did with what you were talking about. Because earlier in the week, Martin was talking about all the stuff he had to deal with being gay in school and all that good stuff and what he withstood and all that good stuff. So it's cool. So they're proud of Tyrell and everything's good in the hood. Or not in the hood. So Naomi comes back to Bill and says that these are the new terms that we want to settle on. And Bill is upset about that. And Naomi says, I'm not budging off of what they will actually want. Vanessa and Doug, they have a heart-to-heart. Vanessa says that Shanice is worried about you. For me, you're distant. Tell me you're not drowning yourself in your work because of me. And Doug was like, no, I love you, da-da-da-da-da. And Doug was like, well, let me tell you the truth. I think Vanessa ended up cutting him off or whatever and saying, I know that we're not madly in love with each other, but I do love you. Are you having an affair? Of course, the cheater is asking the next one if they're cheating. Doug said, no, you don't have to worry about me in that way. Doug is called away, even though Vanessa wants to know what the truth is. Friday is approaching, and Vanessa and visits Nicole. Nicole asks Vanessa, how's everything going as far as searching for a dead mother's home? Vanessa basically says it's going good. And Nicole said, well, how are you dealing with it that he lied about his mom? Vanessa said he just fibbed. He had something that he didn't really want to talk about himself as a vanity thing. And Nicole said, children fib, men lie. And what he told you, that was a load of bull. Vanessa thinks that it's sweet, and then he's opening up. Nicole says it all sounds calculated. It's either a distraction or a deflection as for him to even open up about his wife and all that. And who is confiding more, you or him? And then Nicole asks, do you have feelings for Joey? And first she says he's attractive. I mean, Nicole said, of course, I'm not a dummy. I know he's attractive. And then she ends up saying, yes, she has feelings for him. Over a few times of talking to him. That's pretty crazy that somebody can show you attention and then all of a sudden you're just wrapped up into his world. But I think what is attracting you to him and pulling you to him is the power that he possesses, in my opinion. Um, Joey talks with Randy and says, "Where is my favorite loser at?" Um, and he orders Randy to get his mind back on the tables and get him back, or I will do it. And Joey's like, "What do you really want from him? Just money and all that good stuff? Is not what he can do for me as far as the money is what he can get me." And Doug was like, "Who?" I mean, Randy was like, "Who was that?" His wife. I said, "Lord, so you just really just wanted his wife?" But no, there's a twist. He wants to use Vanessa's company as a way to launder money to make things clean as to what he's got going on. Um, and then Joey asked Randy, "You don't plan on telling anyone?" And he said, "No." Then Joey tries to threaten him in his own little manipulative way. How's your ex and your kid doing? And they said they're doing fine. Well, let's keep it that way. So then Randy ends up calling Doug saying, "I got this scotch. I need you to come by um, the gambling place and all that." And Doug says, "No, I'm not doing this. Da 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 da. I can't do this. Blah 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 blah." So before Randy had called him, Doug was talking with Ashley saying, "How much money do you have on you?" Shanice comes by and says, "Don't bother with this man as far as all this money stuff." And Ashley says, "Look, we can't have any personal stuff on the floor anyway." Shanice makes sure that we don't. So then he wanted to bet $1 for him to make this shot, just throwing paper wide into the garbage or whatever. And Ashley says, "No." "Well, how about 25 cents? So she said, "Sure." So he ends up throwing the basket and all that good stuff and making it. Shanice hands over the quarter. Ashley says, "Look, even though you were good at this, don't quit your day job." Vanessa, Shanice and Vanessa. Um, oh, Doug later on talks with Shanice and saying, "Why were you talking to my wife about me?" And Shanice said it wasn't that deep. It was just that we were kind of worried about how you were actually handling things. He said, "I'm fine, for real. You don't have to worry about me. I'm putting my patient's care first." Naomi visits Anita and sees her playing the piano. Anita really goes into kind of saying that she missed it, and she gave us just how she felt on being on stage and being with her friends, and when they did start the group and all that good stuff. So then they start talking about suing Bill. How's that going? Naomi said, overall, I knew that I had to step down from it. It was conflict of interest, and Bill Hamilton is mortal, and I could not do that to him. And she asked Anita, was she disappointed? And Anita said, "Disappointed in you? Never." Of course she would not do that. You stood up for those ladies and was going to advocate for them. And I'm so proud of you for wanting to do that. Da 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 da. Naomi says, "I'm just somewhere in the middle with my dad at this point. I don't know where we go from here, but I just couldn't do that to him." Kat and Chelsea, they talk about what are we going to do with Samantha in this whole thing, because we're starting a new brand with a new model that has no experience. It can be quite risky. Chelsea said that she had a plan also with certain things Kat said it for Chelsea, we need you to kind of stay out your feelings. What about having Danny as head of marketing? And Chelsea's like, "Absolutely not. I just got from out of her control and all that. She always has made me feel like a little girl, a 13-year-old girl, and I just can't do that. We just got, no." And Kat was like, "Well, think of this. She will be working for us. She cannot just overstep and do anything that she wants to do." And Kat said, you can think about it, but I think that this is the way to go." Pamela comes by to see Danny, and Danny was about to drink again. But Pam stopped her before Danny went to go get a drink. She said that she was fixing a ginger ale. And Pamela says, "Well," and she asked, "Did you want one?" And Pamela said, "No, it's too early for me." Obviously, she knew that her friend was about to drink. Um, Pamela asked, how is she feeling about Chelsea? And she said, "Look, right now I'm at the place of feeling gut punched. I know it's a good thing for Chelsea to be on, and I'm happy for her, but it's just a lot for me to have to deal with." Pamela has a proposal and say, "Let's start our own modeling agency. It could be Curtis and Dupree." Danny said that she would think about it. Yeah, so this week it's kind of Danny centric in my opinion. I've got to get in a soft spot for Eva. I think Eva's just been thrown into stuff that wasn't her choice in the matter, and I think some more secrets are going to come out. But hey, but tell me what you thought about this week. I loved it. Thank you for joining me. It's a long one. Like, comment, subscribe. And until the next one, peace.